Hi, I'm Kelly Starling Lyons, and I'm a children's book author who works to celebrate family, friendship, and heritage, center Black heroes, and show all kids the storyteller they hold inside. My new books are easy readers, Ty's Travels. Please join us for his journey through imagination and fun. And you are listening to So Booking Cool with Jewel B.
So booking, so booking, so booking cool.
That's so motherfucking cool. So listen to So Booking Cool.
Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. Since 2004, today's guest has been writing books with a mission to transform moments, memories, and history into stories of discovery. She is an award-winning children's book author and writer with more than 70 honors to her name, including the 2013 Coretta Scott King Illustrator Honor and the 2008 Bronze Moonbeam Book Awards Medal in the Multicultural Picture Book category. Her 2019 book, Going Down Home with Daddy, illustrated by Daniel Minter, earned over 20 distinctions, including the Caldecott Honor, both starred reviews and Best Picture Books of 2019, each from Kirkus and School Library Journal, the 2020 Bank Street Best Pictures book, the 2019 Lupine Award, and selection for the Social Justice Recommended Title. Her book, Sing a Song, How Lift Every Voice and Sing Inspired Generations, illustrated by Keith Mallett, garnered over 10 honors, including starred reviews from Booklist and Youth Services Book Review, and was the 2020 Notable Social Studies Trade Book for Young People. Her book, Tiara's Hat Parade, illustrated by Nicole Tagdell, is now Read Across America's Picture Book of the Month for March 2021. Her new series, Ty's Travels, from the I Can Read series, include All Aboard and Zip Zoom, illustrated by New York Times best-selling illustrator Nina Mata, which is starred reviewed of a series, with Kirkus saying, both an excellent book for guided reading and a winning read-aloud. And Publishers Weekly said in a feature, new My First I Can Read series celebrates Black Boy Joy. Our guest is also a founding member of the Brown Bookshelf, which was designed to push awareness of the myriad of Black voices writing for young readers. Here with us today, she is Miss Kelly Starling Lyons. Stay tuned for our conversation only on So Booking Cool.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
It's
what
so
an introduction.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. What has it been like to have all this success and to be an author of note, making an impact in children's literature?
Well, my friends and I always say it's the marathon and not the sprint. So, there's a lot of things that are being celebrated right now that have been in the works for a very long time. So it just feels really rewarding to, have these books in the world, to have them reach kids, and to have people say that they have value. So that's really, my mission as an author really is to make sure that all kids, can see themselves and to center Black children. And so that's why I do this every day, and getting honors and accolades is just icing on top.
And, as a youth yourself, you were into reading. You also were always into writing. I know that you had a diary that you often used. So what made you get into journaling?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family that really prized creativity. My mom is a playwright, and she would take us to children's theater, and we would see her act in country repertory theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We were always encouraged to tell stories, and she bought me a diary one year, in this really pretty glossy brown box, and I would open it up, and sometimes it would be just creative little snippets of poems. Sometimes it was what I was feeling in the moment, but just having a place to put what you're thinking, what you're feeling, putting that on the page, being kind of bold enough to put your heart out there in writing is something that has helped me as I've grown and developed as an author.
And you also love the works from Richard Wright, Ralph Ellison, Lorraine Hansberry. So what was it about their writing that really moved you?
Yeah, when I was younger, I can only think really of one children's book when I was in elementary school that I saw that had a black child on the cover, and that was Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And as I think back about my journey, so where I am now, I realized that a seed was planted with that book, seeing myself, knowing that um, our history was being, given a spotlight, feeling the emotions of the characters, and, all of that really left an impact on me, though I couldn't articulate it at the time. But when I was in high school, I had an English teacher who, among her reads for the class, she included Invisible Man, and she included Native Son. And having those books, not just ones that I would discover on my own, but having it be part of the class curriculum and seen for being the masterpieces that they are, that's just, kind of fed my desire to learn even more about these, the kind of works that Black creators had made. And I think in particular, Lorraine Hansberry, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, really spoke to me, because just, finding a way to use who you are, where you're from, your heritage, all that makes you who you are, to inform how you use those gifts that God has given you. And that's, something that I've carried with me as I've grown.
So it took you being, I think, an adult when you
Hmm.
came across Something Beautiful by Sharon Dennis Wyeth. And that was the first time that you saw an African American girl featured on the cover of a picture book. So
That's
you
right.
can would love to know if you remember the thought you had when and where you were when you first discovered that book.
Yeah, so I actually worked for Ebony Magazine. I was a feature writer, and one of my jobs was to be the bookshelf editor. So I would choose the books that were being featured in the magazine, and I would get, so many books across my desk. But when that one came in, immediately I just stopped and stared, looking at that girl on the cover with her sweet face full of wonder, with her bollies and barrettes, the same kind that I used to wear and that my nieces wear and my little cousins wear. Just, seeing her in that moment really kind of took me full circle to when I saw Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. But then being an adult, it hit me in a different way. And I thought about, how all those years in between, I really hadn't seen any children's books that, celebrated us. And they were out there. I just didn't see them. And then when I opened the book and I read it, I was blown away by the power of this picture book that is deceptively simple. It takes the idea of beautiful, which the little girl, the main character, learns in school. And she goes around her community asking people what they consider beautiful. It could be the smooth stone in someone's pocket, or their baby's laugh, or an apple on the stand. And then she goes home and looks at the graffiti, on the wall, and the broken glass on the ground. And she creates beauty by cleaning it up. And I thought, wow, what a commentary on the power that kids hold in their hearts, on kids being agents of change, having this book be an instrument of social justice. And I just fell in love with it, right away. So that was, I credit that, along with Visiting Day by Jacqueline Woodson, as being the two books that really called me to start writing for kids.
And once you made that connection that you had this calling, what were the other steps that you took to becoming an author?
Well, I started by just, thinking about memories that I had, thinking, kind of writing free about different things that might turn into stories. But very quickly, I realized, though I was trained as a feature writer, and though I had, written poetry for fun and other kinds of pieces over the years, children's writing is its own unique, distinct art form that you need to study. So I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I began reading craft books about children's book writing. I started to send things out a few years later, and started to get notes from editors. Sometimes they would give me a hint that I was on the right track, but to keep working on this. So it really was a period of study, trying, revising, and having a lot of faith, because this is not a field for people who don't believe that they can make it happen. You have to, kind of steel yourself for the rejection and see that as just getting you closer to a yes. Thinking about how you can make the story stronger. How can you polish it? How can you serve your characters better? And so I kind of saw it as this, almost like a second master's degree to really immerse myself in the art and craft of writing for kids.
Wow. And you mentioned, how you studied craft in the books that you read. What is your approach to finding the voice in your literature, Miss Kelly?
Finding voice for my characters.
Yes.
Yeah. So, they come to me in different ways. Like Tiara's hat parade actually came with me. The story came with me with Tiara's voice. I could kind of hear her little, sassy, spunky, sweet voice in my head. Mm-hmm. Sometimes things come to me, like, for instance, Going Down Home with Daddy, that came to me through the setting. That is set in the rural South in Georgia. And my husband's family is from there. And from the moment that I went there to visit, it was like the setting was a character. And so that informed the way people were going to talk. So it all depends on what the story is, but stories come to me all different kind of ways. Sing a song that was inspired by an exhibit I saw in a museum, and that one is kind of unique because I think I'm pretty sure it's the only one that I have that's in second person. So I wanted to speak directly to the reader with that book, because I wanted them to know that this is a song that has been passed down through generations, and they are part of that history and that tradition. So at the end of it, when I'm speaking to the young reader and letting them know that this song can give them strength and hope, I want them to feel part of the arc of the song from 1900 all the way till today, and they are part of generation that can carry it on.
How do you find that children respond to the book? Sing a Song in particular.
Mm-hmm. I love sharing Sing a Song because I've gone to so many schools and been just thrilled that there are teachers that are teaching their students lift every voice and sing. And so it even has a deeper meaning when they understand that it was kids like them who kept the song going. A lot of people, that's what really fascinated me about the history of the song. I had heard the song pretty much for my whole life, from when I was little in church to everywhere that I would go. But when I went to Jacksonville, I went to the Ritz Theater and Museum, and I got a chance to learn that James Weldon Johnson and his brother wrote that song for a special occasion. It was the anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birthday. But they wrote hundreds of songs. So that was one special song in a history and a whole catalog of songs. But they kind of forgot about it. But it was the kids who never forgot and passed it on. So I think that song is such a testimony to kids being able to be part of making a difference, being an integral part of movements on the front lines of change. And I think kids are empowered when they hear that, and it makes it have even more meaning to them. And I love when I've gone to schools where they sing it and they're, actually cheering that they get a chance to sing it with me and, hear the story of the song. And then for those who don't know, it makes them curious about it. And there's so many beautiful versions of it. And I love how teachers will go on YouTube and pull up different versions of the song and have the kids vote on which are their favorite. So I hope that it will help them to understand the deep heritage and meaning of the song, as well as make it part of their life from this day forward.
Wow. You've written about nearly 20 books.
Yeah.
So with each book that you write, Miss Kelly, does it represent anything that you're going through in life at that time with each book?
Sometimes it does. I mean, definitely Tea Cakes for Tosh. That's a book that I wrote that was inspired by my grandmother. And when I was younger, my grandmother, to me, she made the best everything. But one of my favorite treats she'd make are called tea cakes. And she would tell me the story of her grandma, Ida, who would have an apron on with a big pocket in the front, and the pocket was always stuffed with tea cakes, and how it was just this special treat. And I loved hearing that story, and I loved eating tea cakes with her. But as she got older, she began to forget parts of her recipe. So she'd make something and it tasted off, like it wasn't quite the way that it had been in the past. And it started to dawn on me that, though she was definitely one who celebrated the oral tradition through her storytelling and through her cooking, we need to, write those things down and keep them going, or they're going to be lost. There's that saying, when an elder dies, a library burns. So I wanted to make sure to kind of celebrate kids who instinctively know that they're the key to carrying forward the legacy. So in the story, Tosh, Honey's grandson, he's the one, when the character begins to forget, he remembers and keeps the legacy of the tea cakes going. So that was, informed by my relationship with my grandmother, and just really feeling a little lost about, having these memories of making tea cakes with her, but not being the kid who paid close attention. I was so busy eating them, I wasn't paying attention to, how to make them. So I wanted to empower my character to do something that I couldn't solve in real life in the moment. So, stories, they come from all different kinds of things. And even though my stories are so different, there's a bit of me in all of them. Like in Hope's Gift, for instance, which is set during the Civil War. And Hope's father runs away to try to bring freedom to his family and to other families. And Hope is there having to hold on to faith and pass it on to others in a time that just seems completely bleak. When you're dealing with the harshness and the horrors of slavery, but she kind of passes on that resilient spirit. And I drew from, there were times when I was younger, my younger brother, he'd be nervous about thunderstorms and I would have to comfort him. So thinking about how big sisters and big brothers, always comfort their younger siblings. So I just pull from lots of different pieces when I'm putting things together, but they definitely reflect different parts of who I am.
Can you tell us some of the differences between writing a series and then writing just a standalone?
Sure. Yeah, it's been fun doing series. I hadn't planned to necessarily, create series. That was something that just kind of came, the opportunities came to me. But it has been so much fun and so rewarding. With series, you're really creating an arc of a character, like one particular character, and following them through different moments and adventures. And for kid readers, they really consider that character to be a friend, and they look forward to seeing, what the character is going to get into next and what challenges are going to face them. And you also want to make sure with a series that the character has certain distinct characteristics that you're carrying through. So there's a bit of predictability in terms of, like a friend, kind of knowing a friend's personality, but then there is the open opportunity to kind of see where their journey is going to take them with that book. With a picture book, that's just a slice of life or an experience for that moment in time. There are some picture books that are picture book series, but the ones that I've done to this point have just been, standalone stories that someone is facing some kind of challenge, and then they work toward overcoming it. And then by the end, they've changed in some kind of important way. And that structure is at play in series 2, but there's a stronger emphasis on kind of the personality of the character and the world of the character, and carrying those through as a constant in the future books.
So is there anything from the experience of writing the Jada Jones series? And by the way, I want to know if there's going to be another book in the series.
Yeah, there actually is. I just turned in book 5, so I'm really thrilled that we're going to have at least 2 more books. The next book is tentatively called Jada Jones Sky Watcher, because, Jada loves science and she's big into, looking at the stars and the planets and all of that. So I'm exploring that for this next book. Jada Jones, it's just been such a joy to write and get to know kids that really have connected with Jada and with her different friends. And one of my favorite notes that I've received was from the mother of a teacher, and she shared with me that in her daughter's class there were some kids that were not getting along, and there were a couple girls that were kind of being a little bit mean toward their friends, and the teacher said to them, what do you think Jada Jones would do? And I was like, really? And they actually thought it through, and then they changed their behavior. And that to me was just, that's the greatest reward you could ever get. And the other moment that I love is a little girl in Memphis. It was Character Day, and her mom sent me a picture, and she was dressed like Jada to a T, from her styling of her braids to the pants with the pockets for rocks. And I just love that so much, that kids have really connected with Jada. And I hope it'll be the same for Ty, that there will be kids that see themselves in Ty and his family and his friends, and that'll be something that, gives them joy and gives them comfort.
Do you like knowing how readers feel about your work, or, is it more of a thing? Are you also okay with just saying, well, I hope this does resonate?
I do like knowing. Readers are very generous, and, they'll post reviews, but they'll also send you emails and notes, or they'll send you inboxes on Facebook, and those just always make me smile. I never have any expectation of anybody reaching out or sending me anything, but when they do, it just feels so good to know that, something that I've written has connected with someone. Even if it only connects with one child, then I feel like I've done my job. So that's just kind of an affirmation that I'm on the correct path, and that I'm doing what I should do, and kind of walking in my purpose. I really have a strong belief in being called to do something, and living a life of intention. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing something that means something to someone else, that's going to lift them up, or it's going to make them think about things in a new way.
And when you are writing a book, Miss Kelly, do you prefer to focus on that book, on that manuscript, or can you also read works from other authors during that time?
Usually I'm focusing on my own manuscript, though I do believe in mentor texts. Before I met Jacqueline Woodson, she was one of my best teachers through her books. So, definitely I will read things like, for instance, in Hope's Gift. At first, it was really, I really wanted to make sure that I was doing a good job in being historically accurate with the Civil War and what would have been happening. And so I was really kind of bogged down with a lot of facts. And my editor did an amazing job. Her name is Stacy Barney, did a wonderful job of helping me get out of just, being so stuck on facts and get back to the heart of the story, which is emotion. How's the character feeling? It doesn't matter if I have all these facts if we don't feel anything. And when I was kind of struggling with how to do that in a graceful, lyrical way without reaching out to Jackie, I could go to her books. Like, one of my favorites is Coming On Home Soon, and, read the way that she made you feel like you were there and smell what's, what the atmosphere is like, and well up when her characters do. So I definitely look to authors whose work I admire as teachers.
Yeah. And when you're really enjoying a book and you get towards the end, do you start to slow down because you don't want the book to be over just yet?
I do, and I also read books more than once. Nowadays I have a lot going on, and because I mostly write picture books and chapter books and now easy readers, that's mostly what I read. So that they aren't, really long, but I do linger over the words, go back over it again. And that's really what I tell when I do work with people that are working on breaking into children's books. I'll have them read mentor texts and tell them to read it first just for fun, but then go back and really study how did that writer make the, character pop off the page, make the setting come to life, make the voice sing, really study it. So I am one that will kind of pour over a book after just having the fun of the first read. Then I'll go back over and just really linger and study how the author made it work.
And when you're writing the manuscript, do you self-edit or do you just, wait for the editor to step in?
Oh no, I'm always polishing and rewriting, and I don't want to, pass it to my agent or editor until I've done the best that I can do on my end.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll write a draft, and then it may be another, couple of weeks or months before I'll pass it on, until I feel like it's at a place where I can benefit from, someone else's point of view, because I've done all that I can think of to do, and I just need someone else to push it even more. So then I will share it with them. But definitely I would not send something cold that I hadn't worked on first.
And why do you think that that's important for authors to not send something cold that they haven't self-edited and, been
Right.
thorough with?
Well, it's a reflection of you, and also your commitment to the audience who we serve, which is children. So if you're just throwing something together and thinking that that's good enough, that's really insulting to the child reader. I mean, kids are very intuitive and perceptive, and they value quality writing, and they can tell when there's something that is done with care and with love, and when there's something that is thrown together. So, both on the side of, always doing your best and making the best impression that you can as an author, but also making sure that you're doing justice to the story you want to tell and to the children who we serve.
And with you being a writer, having that experience already, being a seasoned writer, is it easy for you to meet deadlines for the books that you're writing?
Not always. Sometimes it is. It all depends. I still get writer's block like everybody else. And, often, writer's block for me sometimes comes from a little bit of perfectionism, like, really wanting this to be the best that I possibly can and feeling like it really isn't there and kind of second guessing. And it takes time sometimes to push through that. So that can, slow things down. Certainly now with us dealing with so many assaults on so many fronts, from systemic racism to COVID to, big losses for our community. It's hard sometimes to get my mind clear enough to really focus on writing. So I'm doing my best, and I think that all of us are, and editors and publishers are showing a lot of grace in understanding that this is a tough time for everybody. So, things are coming a little slower than they usually do.
Yeah. And yes, speaking of, the times that we're living in, a lot of the things that you mentioned, such as the pandemic, quarantine, big losses, social unrest, like the injustice,
Yeah.
all of it. How have you been managing through all of these things that have been going on?
Well, it's a lot, and it's heavy for all of us that we carry it. As someone who is creative, and all of us are in different ways, but I try to channel it sometimes into writing. I've done a lot of things with my kids, watching a lot of documentaries and having conversation with them about Black history, finding moments to just try to put it out of our mind the best we can and just enjoy one another. So just a multiple, many different ways, also using Zoom as a way to have connections across, distance, and have those regular moments with people who I care about, who I would have seen a lot this year, because I actually travel quite a bit. I go to, the big industry conferences, and I do a lot of author visits. And so this is very unusual that I'm home, basically from March till now. I haven't been much of anywhere. So, just finding ways to make new kinds of community through the internet, through calling, and, definitely loving on the people here in my home.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And have you made any discoveries about yourself during these times at all?
discoveries about myself. There's, probably lots of things, but one of them is the blessing of slowing down. Often when you're juggling lots of things, I do lots of school visits. I am writing, manuscripts. I believe in activism as much as I can. So I'm always involved in lots of different kinds of projects, but, really slowing down and being present in a different kind of way. That is, and I think, an important lesson for all of us, and has really shown me, kind of reintroduced me to the blessing of just time and quiet. Just kind of being still sometimes. That there is power in that stillness.
All right. And yeah, and speaking of power, what are the proudest moments of your career?
Wow. Definitely, like I mentioned, one of them is the story about the girls with the bullying and using Jada as a model. I just love that so much. Definitely Daniel Minter winning the Caldecott honor for Going Down Home with Daddy. That means, so much to me. Going Down Home with Daddy is a story that really is drawn from my family heritage and my husband's. And, it's so specific. And to know that there are people around the country that connected with that it resonated with. And I've talked about this in other interviews. I think it's important for people to understand that true diversity doesn't mean, kind of colored in faces with a lack of specificity and authenticity. It's the opposite. And when you do that, people always find connections. It's through the specificity that it becomes universal. People realize that they have more in common than they think in different ways. So it's meant a lot to me that story, that celebrates that celebrates family reunions and connection to home and to land and to heritage, that it has found a place in people's hearts. Another moment that really meant a lot to me, also with Daniel actually, was when Ellen's Broom won the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Honor. That's another book that was drawn from some family history. I went to Madison, North Carolina, which is kind of up near the Virginia border where my family is from, and was doing some digging and came across a document that speaks to how marriages were legalized after slavery ended and what that meant to people. And so that was another really personal story. My husband and I jumped over the broom, and to have that honored and recognized. And for me, the CSK Coretta Scott King Award, that one means everything. That's being honored by the Black librarians, and, for them to see value in something that I wrote and that Daniel illustrated. When you think about all the people throughout the history of the award that have been honored, you just feel like you're really blessed to be in that company. A combination of those and the moments where kids have found connections, like another moment with a child. I was at a elementary school near Fort Bragg, an Army base, and I was sharing Hope's Gift. And like I said, it's set during the Civil War. It deals with slavery. And a little girl, white girl, raised her hand and said, "I have a connection to Hope." And I was wondering, what it could be. And she said that she really identifies with Hope and her father, because her own father, goes away to fight for freedom. And she knows what it means to miss him. And I was just so touched by that. Kids always find a way in, and it's always grown-ups who put up the barriers. So often when there's a brown face on the cover, I call it fear of a brown face, that people are scared to give it to kids that aren't of that cultural heritage. And it's actually, they are underestimating and undervaluing the capacity of kids and the empathy and the connection and the celebration that they have for one another. So that one just really underscored that for me.
Yeah, and celebrating, Black voices and everything with the Brown Bookshelf. Can you just tell us how you became a part of it and what it means to you and the reception and all of that?
Sure, yeah. So this is a long time ago now, like 13 years ago. Paula Chase Hyman, who's a good friend of mine, and Varian Johnson have been getting asked a lot about, where to find books by Black creators. And they're everywhere, but, sometimes people just don't know where to look. So they had the idea that they would create this brown bookshelf and we would be a resource. They reached out to me and Don Tate and Carla Surratt and asked us all to kind of found it together. And so we were kind of the founding team of it. And it was all about celebrating us, celebrating Black children's book creators. When you look at the statistics, year after year, the Cooperative Children's Book Center does this annual look at the number of books by and about, people of color, Native people, Black people. And every year, it's at least 2-to-1. Two books about us by white creators to one book by us about ourselves. And that just has to, it has to stop and it has to change. So we wanted to be the ones to celebrate us, to hopefully boost sales, because ultimately publishers respond to sales. So if our books are doing well, then they'll acquire more of them. And we just wanted to, center our voices and let our kids know that not only do they deserve to be the stars of stories, they can write their own story. So that was really how it started. And Paula came up with the idea and the name of our signature campaign 28 days later. So for 13 years, every February, each day of Black History Month, we are shining a spotlight on a Black illustrator or author. And in the past, 7 years or 6 years, we've asked them to write their own posts. So it's kind of like a guest post that goes into their journey into the field, obstacles that they've faced. I might have recommendations for other authors who they really appreciate. And so it really is this archive that people can use, students can use, teachers, parents, to be able to find not just the contemporary authors, because we also salute vanguard authors who have paved the way for us, but to really get a sense of the breadth and the depth of Black children's literature.
And speaking of paving the way, how does it feel with the Brown Bookshelf, to have paved the way for, similar organizations like Brown Kids Read, for example?
Well, it's a blessing. We're all in this work together. So I don't think that, any of us can claim any kind of title as like trailblazer, because we're standing on the shoulders of so many others. But it, definitely feels good to be part of the movement, to be part of creating change. I think all of us have a role to play, and it's just this continuum throughout time. And, if we all do our part where we are, all those singular efforts all combine to make one big wave and movement that'll, usher in something new.
Yeah. And what is something that you think people often get wrong about authors? What is something you wish more people understood about authors?
I think that when we get to the sales part of authors, that sometimes people think that that most authors are making a lot of money, and we're not, especially children's book authors. You're really in it because you love it. And I don't think that, everybody understands kind of how things work. Most authors do not make a living wage with their books. They make a livable wage through opportunities that having books bring, like doing presentations and author visits and, freelance editing and, kind of, piecing together a way to, pay your bills. And I don't know that everybody knows that, because it seems kind of glamorous to be an author, but really it's, there's a lot of hustle, there's a lot of grind, but you really have to have the heart for it. So you really, in the children's field, have to love kids and really be willing to give of your time, to give of your talent. And there's only a small percentage of us that are getting paid in ways that, really can change your life.
And what is the takeaway that you want people to get from Ty's Travels and any book by Miss Kelly Starling Lyons?
Well, I definitely want kids to know, all kids, but my part of my mission is to center black kids, that they are heroes in their own right, that they should be the stars of stories, that they are making history every day, that they're brilliant and they're bold and they're brave and they're kind. And I just want to celebrate that, radiant spirit that they have. I love the way they encourage one another. I'm in schools a lot, so I get a chance to see kids that are, interacting, and how they boost each other up, and, how they, celebrate, how they work through challenges. And so I want kids, when they read something that I've written, to feel like I've seen them, that I hear them, and that they're loved. And for Ty's Travels, that really is a tribute to Black Boy Joy. My son is 12, and he's in a book club that I lead with a friend of mine, and it's been around since he was 4. I see Black Boy Joy all the time. We've done so many fun things with them, and I want to make sure that people see our kids as kids. Just the wonder and the joy and the big imagination and the sweetness. And I think that if we have more books when people, as kids are young, that are, helping them see one another, see the beauty and the spirit in one another as they grow older, that may help to lessen the, gulfs that are created by fear and by ignorance and by hate. So I'm hoping that this can help in the long run to bringing people together, being a bridge. So I'm really honored to have Ty's Travels as a series that I've done. My first time writing an easy reader. So this is for kids just learning how to read. So it means a lot to me that kids, Black children who are learning how to read, can see a little boy who reminds them of themselves, or, someone who they know, and a family that looks like them, doing things that they care about. And also for other kids to see, their friends, people in their community, if they haven't had any interaction with Black children before, to be able to think about, this, kind of counters some of the negative images that sadly are, pushed sometimes in the media. So I want my books and those by friends of mine, I think all of us are working toward making sure that you see us as we really are. As we see ourselves, the full spread and the full reflection of the, different ways that we live and that we love, and, how we celebrate who we are.
What is the best and worst piece of advice that you've received about writing, and why? And what is your advice? And what is your advice for authors out there, especially Black ones?
The best advice, and I say this a lot, when I was just getting started, I went to the Highlights Writers Workshop, and an editor, I was sitting there furiously taking notes, and she said something that just made me just kind of just sit with it for a minute. And it was, write the story only you can tell. So a lot of times I think when people get into the field for the first time, they're thinking about, what can I write that's going to be the next big thing? Looking maybe to the trends of what has been hot or whatever. But really the stories that mean the most, the stories that connect the most and penetrate the most, are those that come from you, that are informed by where you're from, who you are, your fears, your struggles, your victories. So that was such powerful advice for me. And I pass it on to kids too, that who they are is not only enough, it's everything that they need in order to succeed. And the worst advice, let me see. I'm not going to say the actual book, but a few of my picture books, I was encouraged to turn into middle grade. And I just felt really strongly that they should be picture books. And I don't know that it's not necessarily worst advice, because it's a very subjective thing. These editors, definitely were trying to help me find the form that would best serve the story. But I was really glad that I stuck to my vision, that I took, and that's important too, to pass on for those who are writing. You're going to get lots of advice, and it's important to be open and to hear it and to work on your craft and to polish. But sometimes you're going to get somebody that tells you something that it just doesn't connect with you. And you don't have to do it. You can keep on trying, because it only takes one yes to go from being unpublished to having a published book. So you don't want to be so precious about your work that you don't want to change one word, or you're, insulted that somebody, recommended that you, work on parts of your story, or that you tighten up the structure. But you also want to be really clear in your vision to make sure that the advice that you get serves your mission for the story, and that it is bringing you closer to what you hope to do.
And on that note, Miss Kelly Starling Lyons, everyone, thank you so much for talking to So Booking Cool today.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. I'm so glad that you came on, and I would love to talk with you again in the future for sure.
I would love that too. And I love the name of your show, So Booking Cool. So to all of my friends out there, please be sure to listen and subscribe and pass it on. I love all the questions that you asked. They really made me think and reflect on why I do what I do. So I wish you much success, and thank you for celebrating us.
Oh, thank you. That is so kind. Thank you. I really appreciate those words. How can everybody keep up with you and, all the fabulous work that you're doing, and Ty's travels, and stay updated and connected and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a website. It's just my name, kellystarlinglyons.com. I'm on Twitter. That's at KelStarly, KelStarly. And on Facebook, it's just facebook.com/Kelly Starling Lyons. And I do virtual presentations, and always love getting a chance to interact with young readers. Tomorrow is the debut day for the first 2 books of the Ty's Travel series. So I'm really excited about getting to celebrate that with the illustrator, Nina Mata, as well as a rock star educator, Turquoise Parker, who's going to be facilitating a conversation between us. If you're interested in that, you can find it on my Facebook or Twitter, what the link is for that.
Yes, guys, make sure you definitely stay tuned for that and check it out. And, you've already been doing so well in your career, and I just, want to see you continue to do that, and I know you will. So
thank you so much. Thank you. It's definitely is a journey, and I feel like, the ancestors are there with me, with all of us, making sure that their voices are being heard, and then we're continuing the work. And so I'm just really honored to be part of this field, and want to thank all the readers too, because without you, our work wouldn't reach who we're writing for.
amen to that. Thank you to all the listeners, and until next time, So Booking Cool.